During and after World War II, many colonies began to decolonize and gain independence from the imperialist that was colonizing them. Such action is known as decolonization.
However, since we talked about why and how Malaysia and Indonesia were imperialized in our last video, we will now cover how these two countries decolonized from the imperialists. Let us begin. Malaysia, or known as the British Malaya back then, was imperialized by the British Empire. Under the British rule, a lot had happened that led to the decolonization of the British Malaya.
The first reason would be that the number of immigrants that migrated into Malaya increased dramatically. These immigrants were either forced or encouraged by the British to migrate into Malaya to do the labor works for the British, since the Malayans at that time were considered as legitimate citizens.
The next reason will be that the British Malaya and the whole Southeast Asia were taken over by the Empire of Japan during World War II. During this period, the Malayans and the immigrants were treated not so good by the Japanese. Because of such treatments, the belief of nationalism aroused within them. However, with the harsh treatments, they cannot do anything, not until the Japanese surrendered and the British regained control of Malaya.
After the World War II ended and the British regained control of Malaya, the British created the Malayan Union, a political organization that runs the nation. However, in this union, the highest seats were only given to the British representatives. Because of that, many of the citizens opposed this putting an end to the union.
Meanwhile, communist uprisings were on the rise. During that time, a certain political man came back from his studies in Britain. He saw that the country were in chaos. In order to stop that, he created the United Malays National Organization, or known as UMNO, with him as the president. The Federation of Malaya succeeded the Malayan Union, and along with the British, finally stopped the uprisings. Under UMNO, the citizens were united as one, thus strengthened the belief of nationalism even more within the citizens.
Because of the growing nationalism belief within the citizens, people started to think that it is about time they break off from the British. Following that, the sultans, rulers of different states along with the political bodies of Malaya, negotiated with the British to grant them independence. Then in August 31, 1957, Federation of Malaya became an official country and were invited to the British Commonwealth by the Queen of Britain after decolonizing from the British Empire.
The consequences for the British for the decolonization of Malaya would be that they lost control over one of the trade routes in Southeast Asia region. However, this is not anything major for the British. Along with that, they lost one of the source of incomes they had. Despite that, the British gained another member of the British Commonwealth. If the situations called for it, members of the Commonwealth could support Britain in any way possible.
Whereas for the Malayans, they gained independence, and the Federation of Malaya is now considered as an independent country, governed by their own people. Along with that, the Federation of Malaya became a multiracial country.
Also, the Federation became a member of the British Commonwealth, invited by the Queen of Britain. A few years after, Singapore was granted independence and Sabah and Sarawak joined the Federation. Thus, the modern-day Malaysia was formed. Shortly after, Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, along with Malaysia, formed the Associations of Southeast Asian Nations, or known as ASEANs, thus became the largest association within Southeast Asia.
Next will be about Indonesia. Indonesia, or known as the Dutch West Indies, were imperialized by the Dutch. Same for any imperialized nation, a lot happened and those events led to the decolonization of Indonesia from the Dutch.
The first reason why Indonesia, or the Dutch East Indies, decolonized from the Dutch was because the natives were not treated fairly. They were forced to pay heavy taxes and do the labor works for the Dutch. The natives, however, were not happy with this, but whenever the natives tried to protest against the Dutch, they will receive even worse treatments. Thus, the natives kept it to themselves for a long time.
Then during World War II, like what happened to the other Southeast Asian countries, the Dutch East Indies was also taken over by the Empire of Japan. Even though the Japanese treated the natives harshly, the natives were still educated, trained and armed by the Japanese. The Japanese also spread and encouraged nationalism beliefs to the natives.
Thanks to the spreading of nationalism belief, many of the natives united under different political movements. Such political movements, however, show rebellious actions toward the Japanese, which in return, chaos can be seen almost throughout the nation. However, because of the creations of such political movements, political leaders were born, such as Sukarno and Hatta.
As the war comes to an end, thanks to what the Japanese did, the Dutch failed to regain control over the territories. The Dutch were too weakened because of the war, which in return weakened the Dutch authorities and influences over the Dutch East Indies and allowed the natives to declare independence, thus marking the end of Indonesia's decolonization from the Dutch.
The consequences for the Dutch after the decolonization of the Dutch East Indies would be that they had lost a big source of income for the Netherlands, along with the fact that Netherlands were weakened drastically because of the war. At the same time, they lost control over the territory and the raw materials available in the territory.
Whereas for the Indonesians, they gained independence and were recognized as an independent country governed by its own people. Along with Malaysia, Philippines, and Thailand, they formed the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or known as ASEAN, Asian. Thus became the largest association within the Southeast Asia.
Despite all that happened, these two countries became one of the top leading countries of Southeast Asia for many years afterward.
Thank you for watching.